And I want to just review a few tools that one can incorporate both into workouts and around workouts that can greatly enhance fitness and recovery. The first one is the type of respiration tool that you use between sets of exercise. And again, here we're talking about resistance training, but we could just as easily be talking about rest between rounds of, say, high-intensity interval training. So for instance, between bouts of sprinting on the track or the bike or the treadmill or the rower. A great pattern of breathing to incorporate during rest between sets is something that I've talked about before in other contexts, which is the physiological sigh. The physiological sigh is a deep inhale through the nose to maximally or near maximally inflate your lungs, and then a second very brief inhale, and it's necessarily brief because your lungs are already pretty full, to maximally inflate your lungs and to make sure that any of the little sacs, the little alveoli of your lungs that have collapsed during exercise exertion will reinflate. And then a long exhale until lungs empty. So I'll demonstrate it right now, as I've done many times before, but if you haven't seen it or heard it before, it's 2 inhales followed by an extended exhale, and it goes like this. Two inhales through the nose and a long extended exhale through the mouth, the so-called physiological sigh, not named by me, but rather named by physiologists in the 1930s, is, as far as we know, the fastest way to shift your nervous system from so-called sympathetic drive to more parasympathetic drive, from a state of greater alertness to a state of greater calm. Now, the reason to do this between sets of resistance training is that the more that you can shift yourself from sympathetic drive to parasympathetic drive, that is from alert to calm in between sets, the more energy and focus you can devote to exertion during your work sets. Okay, so one way to do this that's very convenient and very effective is to consider the last repetition of your set a physiological sigh, which is not to say, okay, I want to be very clear, which is not to say that you should do the physiological sigh during your set. In fact, I recommend you do not do that, but rather, if you're doing 6 repetitions of a given exercise and you, let's say, fail on the 6th, or you do that 6th repetition and you're just close to failure, because again, your work set should be to failure or close to it most of the time, then set down the weight, and then you're going to do the next repetition as the physiological sigh. Meaning, you're not going to do the movement, you're going to think of doing a physiological sigh as the last repetition of every set, not during the last repetition of the resistance training movement, okay? So the physiological sigh is something you do at the beginning of the rest period immediately following a set. If you'd rather think about it that way because it's more convenient than thinking about it as the last rep of a set, be my guest, whatever works for you. What you'll quickly find is that if you do a physiological sigh right after completing your last repetition, you'll calm down much more quickly, your heart rate will come down more quickly, and you'll recover more completely in whatever designated rest period you've allowed yourself, whether or not it's 30 seconds, which would be very short, frankly, or it's a 5-minute period of rest between sets. If you do truly just one physiological sigh at the beginning of the rest period, you are going to effectively shift your nervous system in the direction you want it to go during those rest periods. And of course, if you're training hard during your work sets, you run zero risk whatsoever of feeling so calm that you don't feel motivated to do your next set. I promise you that it will allow you to relax more at the beginning of the rest period than you ordinarily would, to shift into a state of rest. In any case, doing a physiological sigh at the beginning of each rest interval between work sets of resistance training is a very effective way to enhance your focus and your output during your work sets.